Good morning. Welcome to Tuesday Talks with the Minnesota Association of Realtors. My name is Chris Galler. Today we're going to talk about an important subject that we could call a couple of times a week probably, related to electronic signatures and a larger issue, electronic transactions themselves. And they work hand in hand. In order to go through it today, we've had Brad Boyd, one of our legal attorneys at Thomsen Nybeck, do a lot of research on the issue, and he's laid out an agenda item for you today, a full white paper, a briefing on it that you're able to get in today's e-resource right below this video. The video is here so that it's kind of an introduction to the issue itself. First, on electronic transactions. An electronic transaction is essentially no different than a regular transaction. A regular transaction has two parties generally that are coming together on certain terms. They put those terms in writing. One party offers to the other terms of a purchase in our situation for a transaction, and the other side either counteroffers or accepts it. That's a traditional transaction, and Brad lays out a very nice overview of a traditional transaction. We've had fax transactions, which is the transmission of the transaction itself. So if indeed I can't get to another agent's office or to the sellers, if that's my client perhaps, I can fax it to them. The key to the fax is that somebody has a documentation, a receipt that shows that the other party has received it. That's why it's important, if indeed you do fax acceptance to the other office or to another agent, that you have that receipt that says usually okay at the top or received at the top, so that you can say, yes, my party signed it, I faxed it over to them before delivering it to them, and they received it, and here's our proof that they received it. The next part gets into electronic transactions when you're dealing with emails. So let's say I'm in Grand Rapids, Minnesota. I was there last week, beautiful town. Beyond that though, I'm in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and there's a client in the Twin Cities purchasing property up there. It would be inconceivable for me at 9 o'clock at night after meeting with my clients to drive all the way down to the Twin Cities and deliver that purchase agreement. And it could be that I don't have a fax machine, or I'm having difficulty with a fax machine, but I decide I'm going to scan the purchase agreement at my office and email it to the agent. That's okay, so long as, and there's not good case law on this, but as Brad has indicated, this is very similar to a fax transmission as long as you have a read receipt. And that is, when the agent on the other side of the transaction opens it up, it sends you a receipt that, yes, they have received this message. And that's an option in most emails that you're able to use. That's a very important part. Just the act of me sending it to them does not mean that they've received it. And I need to have some documentation to show that they've received it. So that's the electronic transaction part of it. That's in the memo that Brad's put together. The last piece is an important piece relating to electronic signatures. So let's say, again, I'm in Grand Rapids, but my client is now in the Boundary Waters. All they've got is their handheld device. I'd love to deliver the purchase agreement to them and canoe out there, but that's not very handy. And some people would say, well, why don't we use an electronic signature, have a code? There is a number of companies that offer those. That comes under what's called the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act. Yep. They have a whole act on it. And in Minnesota, that determines what happens. And the key piece for real estate on that is that the parties must agree to do business that way in advance of doing business that way. That means if my client is suddenly headed up into the Boundary Waters, I'm not able to all of a sudden say, well, we're going to use electronic signatures from here, because the parties have not agreed to that in advance. And that's the emphasis of the law that you need to understand when you're dealing at it. Brad's put together a full piece. We hope you'll take the time to review it. If you're a broker in the marketplace, please put a policy together so that when indeed your agents run across this, you have a handy policy that was decided not in the heat of battle, but in the cool of the weather. So put one together. We hope that you enjoyed it today. We'll talk to you again next week.